Interfaces do not contain any programming logic, but simply define a minimum set of properties and methods that a class must contain. In addition, classes may also contain properties and methods that are not specified in the interface. In this lesson, you will implement the iDisposable interface in one of your own classes. The iDisposable interface is part of the .NET framework. To begin this lesson, open the Market Trader project from your Sample Files folder. This is a relatively simple web application that is used to display stock market data. Next, open dataaccess.cs. This class is used for all of the database queries in the project. Notice that this class contains an instance of the Market Trader Data Context class, which is a link data context. This object could use a lot of memory, so you should dispose of any instances of this class when they are no longer needed. Open the code behind file of marketdata.aspx now. The button getData click event handler creates an instance of the dataaccess class, but doesn't dispose of it properly. In Essential Skills Session 6, you learned that the best practice to ensure that objects are quickly disposed of is to wrap the code in a using statement. The using statement works by calling the object's dispose method. Try adding a using statement to automatically dispose of the dataaccess object. To do this, change the first line of the button getData click event handler into a using statement as follows. Using dataaccess data class equals new dataaccess, then add curly brackets so that the rest of the event handler's code is contained in the using statement. Now attempt to build the project. An error appears in the error list window. MarketTrader.dataaccess, type used in a using statement, must be implicitly convertible to system.iDisposable. The iDisposable interface defines a single method called dispose. This error message is a roundabout way of saying the dataaccess class does not contain a dispose method. Return to dataaccess.cs now, and you're going to make this class implement the iDisposable interface. You could simply include a dispose method, and the code would compile without errors. But it is best practice to explicitly implement the iDisposable interface. Implementing interfaces is done in exactly the same way as extending classes. Change the code that defines the dataaccess class to public class dataaccess iDisposable. The dataaccess class now implements the iDisposable interface, and could be grouped with any other classes that implement the same interface. In Lesson 5.3, you learned how objects that extend classes can impersonate and be converted into the base types that they extend. In a similar way, an interface can be regarded as the base class of any class that implements it. This may sound a little confusing at first, because you may be thinking that an interface is an entirely different construct to a class. In reality, an interface can be thought of as a class that only contains abstract methods and properties. Because a class that implements an interface extends the interface's base class, it should be clear that you can convert an object to the same type as any interface that it implements. For example, any class that implements the iDisposable interface can be converted into an iDisposable object, as in the following code. iDisposable myDisposableObject equals iDisposable myObject. This technique is extremely useful when you need to create a collection containing different objects that all implement the same interface. Note that you can implement more than one interface in a class by simply separating the interfaces with commas. For example, public class DataAccess iDisposable, iDataSource creates a class named DataAccess that implements both the iDisposable and iDataSource interfaces. You can use the same syntax to create a class that extends more than one other class. For example, public class cat mammal, feline creates a single cat class that includes all of the properties and methods in both the mammal and feline classes. It's even possible for a class to both extend classes and implement interfaces using this technique. For example, public class cat mammal feline iDisposable iDataSource. Extending and implementing multiple classes and interfaces can quickly get confusing. In these cases, it can be helpful to use Class View or the Object Browser. You will learn about these in Lesson 5.8. Now attempt to build the project again. Another error appears in the error list window. MarketTrader.DataAccess does not implement interface member system.iDisposable.dispose. To implement an interface, the class must contain any methods and properties that are defined by the interface. In this case, the class must have a dispose method to implement the iDisposable interface. Add a dispose method to the class now with the following code. Public void dispose data dot dispose. Now attempt to build the project once more, and this time the project builds without any problems. Test your code now by viewing marketdata.aspx in your web browser. When the page loads, click Get Data, and the data is successfully returned from the database. The code is now more memory efficient, as it will dispose of the DataAccess object after retrieving the data. Close your web browser now, and close Visual Studio. You've now completed Lesson 5.6. Implement an interface.